Last year, the American Cinematheque here in Los Angeles featured twice The Music Lovers, once with the participation of its director, Ken Russell. Despite you being a good pianist, playing Tchaikovsky's first piano concerto as a professional musician must have been a real challenge. How did you achieve that?
Well, I had the recording that the London Symphony did with a wonderful pianist. And I had a paper keyboard, full size but paper, and I had the music, and I practiced. You didn't have to hit the right notes, of course, but you had to hit the notes at exactly the right time. And so through the entire shooting of the movie, we didn't have to do the pianistic scenes until later on. I practiced over and over and over and over and over again to learn to simulate my fingers on the keyboard. And the fascinating thing is when you're playing a mute piano in the actual scene, and the recording of the music is booming, and when you're hitting the notes at exactly the right time, you really feel like you're playing the thing. It's quite thrilling, but it took a lot of practice.
A side question, do you still play the piano?
Yes, I hadn't played for a long time, but I just bought a piano for my little apartment here, and have been practicing again, so I'm hoping to get back into it.
You were Aramis in The Three Musketeers, The Four Musketeers, The Return of the Musketeers, two swashbuckling films par excellence that have become reference films in that genre. In these two films, you were either horse riding or fencing. As an actor, you were extremely well prepared, and that allowed you to be cast for all kinds of parts. Are actors supposed to know how to ride, to fence, and I would also add, play the piano and sing?
When I was a kid, I didn't particularly like practicing the piano. And I remember my mother and my grandmother saying, you've got to know how to do everything. If you want to be an actor, you must know how to do everything. And I sort of took that in. The fencing practice, of course, I don't know how to fence for real at all, but I'm rather good at the choreographic kind of fencing when you practice all the moves. But it's still quite dangerous. If you screw up, you can get really hurt. There was a scene in Hamlet in Birmingham. It was one of the first period pieces I had done with fencing, and we played with foils, which are rather flexible. And the closing night, I parried in the final fight scene. I parried a move by the other actor, and his foil curved over mine and cut my head. And it was great because blood started to trickle down my face. And it was so dramatic. I thought, whoa, this is really, I didn't feel the pain at all. I thought, this is really working great. But yeah, it's dangerous, and the more you do it, the better you get at it.
How was it to work with Aborigines in Peter Weir's The Last Wave? A film about the intrusion of reality into dreams and dreams into reality, as it was described then?
Yes. All that's for real, by the way. The Aboriginals, like Hawaiians in a different sense, have connections with nature and each other and spirit that we don't know anything about anymore. We just don't know. They have their dream time. I still don't quite understand what it is, but they can go into an alternative reality that's absolutely real. David Gulpel was saying that when a relative of his needed to get at a distance, needed to get in touch with him, he'd get this feeling, and the skin would actually pucker up on his arm. Those things are just every day for Aboriginals. Nanjiwara, who played the sort of elder in the show, was the real thing. And his presence was extraordinary. And there was a time during the production when his wife, who was in the production, was insulted by some, he was more a tribal Aborigine, by some city Aborigines in the show. And he went into the producers and said, young hotshot producers, working on a very tight budget. He said, I'm very sorry, but my wife has been insulted on the set, and I must leave the production. We must leave. And they found themselves so taken by him and his presence that they were saying, okay, Nanji, we'll really miss you, but if you have to go, you have to go. Well, that was amazing, because it would have almost taken the picture down. And but they couldn't resist the extraordinariness of his presence. He did come back. Peter, I think, was instrumental in making it all work out. But they were, and David Gulpilil. David, along with being a wonderful actor, could be perfectly happy in the city, and could go out to the edge of the outback, rip off his clothes, and go catch a lizard and eat it raw. I mean, he could do both those worlds. Amazing. Yeah.
Shogun, the masterpiece, filmed 31 years ago, and it has not aged a bit. The show rested on your shoulders, not only because you were practically in every scene, but also because the production owed a lot to you, keeping cool, calm, and collected all along, despite the reported occasional clash of cultures during the filming. Executive producer and scriptwriter Eric Berkovici himself admitted, quote, with a troublemaker actor, the complicated project might never have been finished, end of quote. When you think of the shooting of Shogun, what comes to your mind? What images have remained with you?
Well, making Shogun was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. It was terrifically hard work. The Japanese actors were sensational. I mean, Mifune-san, my God, what a giant actor he is. And they all were just wonderful. I had all my eggs in that basket, so to speak. I wasn't about to screw up. And I kept myself together. Yes, there were huge difficulties. There was a lot of conflict between the Japanese and the American crew. We made some rather strategic mistakes. For instance, our Jerry London had female interpreters to tell the Japanese assistant directors, etc., what to do and how to do it. Well, Japanese men don't take orders from women. It's just not, it doesn't happen. And so their noses were out of joint right from the beginning. Anyway, there was a lot of conflict. But I knew I had to make this work. I had to. And I loved the project, and I loved the part, and I loved doing it. But James Clavell, who hadn't wanted me in the beginning, he wanted Sean Connery, etc., said in the end, he said, you really kept your wah. And that makes me cry to think about it.
Compliment.
And that's very important to the production.
How did you prepare yourself to be John Blackthorn? Had you been in Japan before and been exposed to Japanese culture?
I had been in Japan before, briefly, and loved being there. I have always loved Japanese art, for instance. Really loved it. And felt I sort of understood it. I read a lot about it. There's an enormous amount of historical information about Blackthorn. He was a real person in a real situation. Toranaga was really Toragawa. And so I read and read and read. But mostly the novel is so wonderful and rich that I think I got my idea of Blackthorn mainly from the novel and from Clavell. I thought he was a terrific guy.